We don't really know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep. But now everybody knows. Got to keep.
You don't have to be retired to receive tax-free income. The problem is the vehicles that we've been conditioned to believe to help get us there were never designed to produce income.
Got to keep going. What you want to be going, you will see.
All ideas.
It's your destiny, be in harmony. We were never meant to be apart. What you want to be going, you will see. You can have everything you want. It's your destiny, be in harmony.
If you had a machine in your garage and all you had to do was put a quarter in it and it printed out $100, put a quarter in it, printed out $100, would you ever stop that machine from running?
But now everybody knows.
So what if you use that job that you hate as leverage to fill your machine so they can create income for you, so you don't have to worry about income?
Really know where the world is gonna go. But now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep going.
Today. My goodness. All right, here we are. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much. We love to see everybody in the chat, welcoming everybody in, the fam, reuniting in there, and we've got some new faces. So thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. The more active the chat, the more people get to see it, and we so appreciate that too. So get in here. Tonight's live stream, we're tackling a topic that has been on many of your minds. It's been highly requested. It's how exactly does a secure compound interest SCIA, secure compound interest account, how does it generate such impressive returns, and why is it outperforming traditional index universal life insurance policies and IUL? Not to mention a whole life policy, right? Like that's a given. We'll be breaking down the mechanics, focusing on the concept of the buckets. So if you've been looking for the buckets video, this is it, and illustrating how those elements work together to grow your wealth more effectively. Now, our goal is to provide clarity, enhance your financial strategy, and help you leverage the full potential of this type of policy for maximum income. So let's dive in and explore why this might be a game changer that you've been looking for. And Donnell, you want to start us off by talking about just how they're different?
So yeah, this and what prompted this is, we've over the last few weeks rather, we've been talking about velocity banking and then what to do with it once you have those funds. And we talked a little bit a few days ago around a policy that I'd received from a potential client of mine who had picked up this illustration in relation to whole life. And his ask was, hey, how does my whole life policy compare to a secure compound interest account or a leveraged IUL, as we like to call it? Like, how does what I have currently compare to this concept? And so the thought process was, hey, let's compare the two. And even though I don't see it as an apples to apples comparison, when you talk life insurance, everyone gets a little bit, I'll call it, confused because they assume that all life insurance policies are the same.
Or cash value, right?
Right. Meaning if it's a cash value life insurance policy, it must be doing the same thing. And it's not.
Right.
Who you get it from, the type, the life insurance company you use, the structure, like all of these things are very, very important. And so what we just wanted to highlight a few days ago was just what some of those differences are and why one performs differently than another. And so the question that was asked was, well, if a secure compound interest account, like we were referencing, a SCIA, has leverage and it grows, like what is it about a SCIA? Because if it's just an IUL, at its core, it's just an IUL. If that's the case, then why is it? How is it possible that we're able to generate so much more growth inside of it? So we just wanted to peel back some of the layers, go into some of those details. And this is something that we've covered many times before in bringing up the buckets and breaking down what happens year after year inside of a policy like this. But I also wanted to, I guess, take this opportunity to slow down because I tend to not. So I think this is an opportunity to assist some of the new people on our live and help them understand a little bit better how things happen inside of a product like this. And I've got SCIA in my head is what's going on here. And I can hear her going, but what's the definition of that? And so I'm looking for a little bit of, I'll call it um, audience participation, maybe specifically Sequia. I'm going to try to slow down and be more explanatory around what some of these, I'll call it acronyms, mean. And if you see me run across one and I am not, I'll call it breaking it down a little bit further, feel free to stop me. Feel free to just let me know and I will go back or I'll re-explain or whatever it is I need to do. So I'm gonna try to go a little bit slower than I normally go through this process. So.
I really appreciate that. I think everyone else will appreciate that just because sometimes it does feel like a fire hose. And if you're not caught up with what the terms are, sometimes it's easy to get caught up in what the heck was that? What does that mean? I struggle to move forward, right? If you don't know what that is. Nathan made a comment here that I just happened to catch, and it's the WTF is in the bucket, and we don't talk about this enough anymore because we've talked about it so much that you're right. A lot of times we just assume that everybody's been here since the beginning. And so
Right.
we don't want anyone to feel left out. The WTF moment is probably one of our guiding principles in what it is that we do. This WTF moment was something that we didn't even realize this is what we were actually saying until you were speaking at an event one year, right? And they were saying, what is your moonshot? What is your moonshot moment? And you were describing this moment that happened for us. And it was almost like you could hear a pin drop in the room. And from that point forward, everybody was talking about their WTF moment and referencing their moonshot as their WTF moment, right?
Right.
This idea, why don't you just explain it really quick so that people get on board with what that means?
Yeah, no problem. And you're absolutely right. I was in a room of real estate investors. I had just presented breaking down how you can leverage an IRA or 401k to be able to buy self-storage facilities. And during the event, it was just asked of everyone in the room, "Hey, what's your moonshot?" And it dawned on me, um, our goal is to achieve our WTF moment. And when you say WTF, especially, I think I was in a room of mainly Christians, even. When you say WTF, it was almost like a clutch of the pearls, right? It was like,
Yeah,
is this
right.
the environment for that? And but when you break down, or when I broke down the WTF, what I mean by WTF, this is what I mean. Um, our objective is to continue pushing forward so that we can achieve the wealth that it is we deserve. When I'm talking about wealth, I'm talking about legacy and all of those things associated with putting ourselves in a position so that we don't have to worry about stuff and things. So it's wealth, it's time. And at the point that I was actually sharing this information, I can't say that I was fully in control of my time at that moment. So the focus was, hey, continue doing what we're doing so we can have control over our time. So, question you should ask yourself is, who controls your time today? Meaning, if you wanted to take Monday off, could you? Do you have to get permission from someone else? How much control of your time are you? And the goal should be to have full control over your time. So W being wealth, T being time, and then freedom. But what's freedom? Some people equate freedom to a number. I don't. I think freedom is your ability to be able to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, when you decide to do it. That is not a number. That is you being in full control. And that is truly what being self directed is. Self directed is having control over your wealth, control over your time, and having true freedom. So that is the WTF moment.
Yeah, and we're here to make sure you have that same realization and what that means for you. What does it mean? What does wealth mean for you? What does taking control back of your time? What would that look like? And what does financial freedom mean? It is a spectrum of meanings for people, and so it's not a one size fits all type of thing. However, the most important part of this is that you believe that it's possible for you. Some people don't even try to achieve it because they don't believe that it's even possible. And we're here to change that on a global scale. Like we would, well, national scale. We would love to see more families step up into this reality that not only is it possible for me, but I've achieved it. We've seen amazing results inside of our Facebook group. And this is a myriad of strategies too. This isn't just everybody's doing the same thing. They're taking the variables that they have in their life and they are applying these strategies to that, and they are amplifying results like crazy. This isn't anything that we charge for. We do it right here for free because everybody should have access to this information. It's just information, right? So that's what we're talking about tonight. We're peeling back those layers so that we can understand things better, so we understand how they work, we understand how to leverage them, where our leverage is and where our power is, so that we can have the most impact in achieving our goals. That's it. That's it in a nutshell, just about everything that we do. So if you're here, please like this. Helps push it out so other people can have this realization too. We appreciate everybody who participates in the comment sections, on the replays, in the chat while we're live. And if you have questions, put a Q in front of that and we'll get to it in the Q&A session. Okay. All right. You ready to jump in?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. Well, I pulled the trigger on that a little prematurely. I need to make sure you get everything ready. Okay. All right. I'm ready to go. Let's get into it.
So a couple things. This, I'll call it first slide, or this thumbnail, has evolved over the last few hours. What it says right now is this life insurance policy and how it grows faster, right? Well, I think if you look at the live, it actually says something different. It says something along the lines of how a SCIA grows faster. And I think this is the start of me trying to slow down a little bit, because I automatically assume that everyone knows what a SCIA is. We talk about SCIA so much on this channel that everyone knows what I mean when I say SCIA, and that's not true. So all a SCIA stands for a secure compound interest account. All that is a life insurance policy, a type of life insurance policy. So the whole goal for today is how this particular life insurance policy grows faster. But still, let's break down SCIA a little bit. Let's kind of dig into some of those details that, again, normally I would blow right through. Again, a SCIA is just the acronym SCIA just stands for a secure compound interest account. There is many types. It's an umbrella. It's a bucket, like meaning there's different types of SCIAs, and not all of them are the same. And as a matter of fact, this list you see isn't the only list. So an FIA, a FIA, that's a fixed index annuity. An IUL, an index universal life insurance policy. Your savings account is a secure compound interest account. And again, what do I mean? You have money in this account that securely grows, securely compounds. Your money makes money, and the money that your money makes more money. Now, does your savings account make a lot of money? And then there's a high yield savings account. So my point is, all I'm talking about here is nothing profound or special or particular. It's pretty general, and that is, there we go. Whether we're talking about a savings account or an index universal life insurance policy, I'm talking about for today's example, I'm talking about a specific type of SCIA. What type specifically am I referencing? Let me get my pointer here. I'm talking about a leveraged IUL. So there are many types of SCIAs, but what I'm referencing today is a leveraged IUL. Notice any of the words that kind of jump out being similar, meaning index pops up a lot. Got index. This leveraged IUL is a type of index. So index jumps out a lot. So why a leveraged IUL compared to an annuity, or compared to a regular IUL, or compared to a high yield savings account? Why? Like, what is it about it? And notice what I am not listing here. Again, this is a type of life insurance. Most people in social media land have been hit with a whole life policy and infinite banking. Notice I don't have whole life in this list. Why is that? Like, what is the reason? So again, why an IUL? Why a leveraged IUL? And what is it about a SCIA that makes it something that I kind of want to go through or break down? Let me get rid of this real quick. All right, there we go. So what is it? It's the growth potential. The reason we want to use a SCIA or a leveraged IUL to be able to kind of break down things today is because of its growth potential. What is the growth potential? Well, if we were to compare again, make an apples to apples comparison between a whole life policy, an index universal life policy, and a SCIA that I'm referencing today, again, which is just a leveraged IUL. What's the difference? Well, people love whole life policies because of their guaranteed growth. So that guaranteed growth is somewhere between 3 and 4%. I think it might even be a little bit higher than that for some, maybe 4.8 or something like that. But on average, somewhere around 4%. But that's guaranteed growth, which is awesome. An IUL, not all IULs are the same. It has to be properly structured. If it's properly structured, you can get on average about 7% growth. And where am I getting this number from? Well, if you look at the performance over the last 15 years of some properly structured IULs, that is what's being achieved here. And notice, these two items are actually, the growth potential is very similar. It's not the same, it's very similar. And then that participating loan. With cash value life insurance policies, what makes them great is your ability to leverage your money now. Use them as, I'll call it, a living benefit opportunity where you can leverage the cash value that's in it to be able to use and do infinite banking, pay a bill, do velocity banking with that leverage. Like, there's many different things you can do with the leverage. Well, that leverage is just, how do you access the leverage inside of those policies? Through the form of a participating loan. Notice the difference in the cost of that for participating loan, meaning that cost to borrow inside of each one of those policies. It's different. In most cases, inside of a whole life policy, the growth is less than it costs you to leverage your money. So if we're talking about secure compound interest, your money making money, and that money that your money makes more money, whenever you go to access your money inside of a policy like this, you're losing money. So that's why I don't have it in my list of SCIAs. Some people might. I don't. This is my opinion, purely my opinion. And when we talk about growth inside the policy, again, inside of a whole life policy, you're losing money. But inside of an IUL, you have the ability to still make money inside the policy every time you leverage a dollar. And in the SCIA that we're talking about today, the leveraged IUL, that growth is even greater. So if you were to just look at these, again, if we're going to compare apples to apples, if you were just to look at these individually, which would you prefer? And again, this is just simple math from my perspective. One grows better than the other. Well, that's one of the reasons why, growth potential. The other reason why we want to use IUL, again, I go back to that word indexed. What does that even mean? And so it relates to security, meaning at my age, I'm 51 years old. At my age, the last thing I want is a loss. The last thing I want is for us to change presidents in November, if we do, and then the market does whatever it does, and I lose 24, 34, 54% of what I've accumulated in the market. So I look for protection. I look for security. So why would we want to use a SCIA in the form of a leveraged IUL? It's the security part. And here's what I mean. That whole life policy that I'm referencing, it has guaranteed growth for life, which is awesome. Meaning it's a fixed 4, 3.5, 5%, whatever it is. That's awesome. When you have your money tied up in the stock market, what you're dealing with is variable growth, meaning there's no security. Your ability to lose at different points is significant. So depending on who sneezes in the market or who takes some action that causes an adverse reaction in the market, you have the ability to potentially lose your money when you are tied up in, I'll call it, market-based products due to its variable performance. But why are we using an IUL, an indexed universal life insurance policy? It's because of the 0% floor. What the indexed vehicle offers is the ability to not lose. So notice, if I'm if I made money with the market here and all of a sudden the market crashes, what happens inside of my policy is I get to keep what I've made. So I don't lose. And then when the market takes off again, I start from where the market ended. And so I'm able to still perform with the market. I'm still able to take advantage of the growth in the market. But whenever the market dips, I don't participate in any of that. It's secure, meaning the principal and the growth that I've made year after year after year is protected. And we'll get into some of those details, but my point is the reason for using this over this is the ability to produce compound interest. And all compound interest is your money making money, and the money that your money makes more money. So going back here. So why is this why this SCIA grows faster, or why this specific life insurance policy grows faster? We have to dig into some of those details. And again, all I'm talking about is a leveraged IUL, meaning this product is an IUL. So what we're actually comparing today is an IUL compared to an IUL. So what is it about a leveraged IUL? Well, you've got your contributions, and those contributions are protected by a 0% floor, meaning if the market crashes, I don't lose what I've created. I don't lose what I've contributed to it. I just may not participate in any growth that year. So I'm protected. My principal and my growth are protected. Well, at some point inside of this product, there's going to be a match. And when that match is added, I have my contributions working for me as well as this match amount working for me. And most of us understand what I mean when I say match. Think of your traditional retirement account. Compare your traditional retirement account that you have with your employer. Let's call it a 401k. Imagine a 401k with a match compared to a 401k without a match. Which is better? And what do I mean? Well, with your 401k, your money's tied up in the market and is growing and is producing you hopefully retirement income. If you have a 401k without a match, it's solely dependent upon what it is you're contributing. Whereas with a match, that means the company is participating in helping you grow your income faster. Well, this happens inside of this product as well. You have your contributions that you're putting inside this product, and then at some point, there's an additional dollar amount being added, being leveraged to help your account grow even faster. So if you take this away, this is just an IUL. But if you add, matter of fact, imagine adding this to a whole life policy. Imagine adding this to anything. If you add any additional growth, if you add someone else's money into any process, you have the ability to make more than you would without it. And that's all we're talking about here. This is not hard. And this is also why when I speak to other life insurance providers who don't really understand this, it's this piece that when you add this to anything, I don't care what it is, call it an annuity, call it a whole life policy, call it a 401k, call it an IRA. When you add someone else's, call it real estate. When you add someone else's money and you add that money and it's secure, it can't do anything other than help you make more money. So my point is, this leveraged IUL is about structure. But what is that structure? Here, let me highlight this real quick, make it bigger. Oh.
Hey.
So that structure that I'm referencing is purely about a max funded, option B, IUL with leverage. So anyone who has a life insurance policy or knows someone who generates and or sells or creates life insurance policies, they can provide you a max funded policy. What do I mean by max funded? Max funded just means you're purchasing the least amount of life insurance legally possible. Why should you care about the structure of your policy or making sure that the structure of your policy includes you buying the least amount of life insurance legally possible? Why should you care about that? The less life insurance you buy, the less expense to you. The less expense to you, the less money you're paying out to the life insurance company, which means you have more of your money available to now produce compound interest. The whole point and purpose of this product is so that you make money. So if you're spending less, that gives you the opportunity to make more. So it's about being max funded. And then and again, if we're talking about growth, it needs to be option B. What does that mean? And we talked about this last week. There's an option A policy, there's an option B policy. Option B is just simply saying, as you contribute to this policy, you're building cash value. And as that cash value grows, your death benefit increases. Death benefit is just the amount of life insurance you purchase plus the cash value. So as you contribute to this policy, the death benefit continues to get larger every year that you contribute more and more to this policy. Why does that help you? Well, More that cash value that's available, you get to leverage, use, borrow against, use as income for the rest of your life. So max funded assists you. Option B assists you. We've already talked about an IUL. We're leveraging an IUL because of the security, because of that 0% floor and that growth potential. And then the leverage piece, the use of other people's money. So this is all about structure. Anyone who offers an IUL, can they offer you this structure? Well, 3/4 of it. Meaning they can get you a max funded option B IUL, no problem. The question is, can they add the leverage to your policy? Ask them that question, because there is a specific process that has to be done in order for you to add leverage to a properly designed life insurance policy. So my point is, we're going to kind of break down today an actual example, and I'm just going to piggyback off the example that we used last week. Let me go back and kind of just restate that real quick. One moment. So if you remember, and I didn't even erase the writing from last time. If you remember, we were talking about a policy for a gentleman, 38 years of age, putting in 4906, and I know it's a weird number, but 4906 every year, which is like 408 and like 10 cents every month. And this is the whole life policy that he wanted me to review. And so what we acknowledged was, when you put in 4906 in year one, how much cash value do you have? 3701. Well, the difference between the 4906 and the 3701, that's 1135, meaning he put in 4906 in year one. He's got 1135 in something taken out of his account, which leaves him with cash value of 3701. The question was, if I was to design if I was to create a properly designed a SCIA, a properly designed leveraged IUL, what is that performance compared to this? And so we went over here to that SCIA and we did the exact same thing. It's the same 4906 being placed into this product. If you come over here to the accumulation value is 4396. So 4906 minus 4396, you end up with $510, meaning the difference between 1155 and 510. This is what a properly structured, properly designed policy looks like. And then we dug into, well, when the leverage kicks in year three, what happens? And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to break down putting in the 4906 year after year, but when the leverage kicks in, how does this product change? So let's dig into those details. And before I do that, sweetheart, any questions before I continue?
Nope, no questions yet, but I do want to point out that the majority of people who are calling you are to review their policies are from, they have a whole, oh, what happened? They have a whole life policy or have just been pitched, I guess, a whole life policy. So they're
Yep.
bringing this to you going, hold on a second. The person that I talked to, they said that this was the best I could get, but what you're showing is something completely different. So why are one of these things is not like the other? Why? And so that's really what it is. A lot of people are hearing about whole life policies because maybe they came in from velocity banking and they heard about infinite banking and this vehicle. One thing that you didn't cover when you were talking about leverage and the different terms was where leverage is. Even inside of a whole life policy, it's the concept of infinite banking is still leverage, right? We understand how powerful leverage is. And if you're just learning about velocity banking or you're already down that path, then you also understand that leverage is really the most powerful element of velocity banking. So where we can use leverage, it's important to identify where it is and how it's functioning, right? So the one thing I just wanted to point out is a lot of interest comes from whole life, people with whole life policies. Now, I do want to say this before people feel like I feel like I made a bad decision. I don't want to watch. That's not what this is for.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's not to make you feel bad. It's not to point out or say there was some mistake made. First and foremost, any life insurance is better than no life insurance. So we want to get that out the way for sure. The second part is sometimes it's better to become educated so that you understand what your options are and where the rest of your money could go, right? So even if you have gone down the road, the worst thing you can do is continue down the wrong path enthusiastically, right? Or feel like you have to continue choosing that path. There are options. We just don't know what we don't know sometimes. So I just wanted to put a pin in that here at this point, just in case anybody was feeling like, hold on a second, maybe it's not worth it for me to learn because I already have this type of policy.
Right.
That's all.
And along those lines, we don't know what we don't know. And there's the whole point and purpose and objective here is to simply educate, meaning kind of peel back the curtain and understand why. So that way, when you are having these discussions or you're trying to decide what path you should go down, I just want to make sure you have all of the proper information available to you. So again, we're going to focus on a leveraged IUL. Specifically, what happens inside of it is you're going to contribute a certain dollar amount. Then at some point, there's going to be a leveraged dollar amount. I'm calling it a match, but it has many different names, and we'll walk through that as well. And then we're going to talk about how a product like this performs. So kind of just setting the stage and digging into some details. This is where I'm introducing the bucket. And moral of the story is we're dealing with someone 38 years of age. He's going to contribute the same consistent amount. He got a 7-pay. His whole life policy is a 7-pay. So I'm kind of recreating the same thought process. The goal is to contribute for 7 years inside of a product like this. And we're going to talk about what it looks like inside of a leveraged IUL when you contribute to it in a consecutive 7-year period. So he's contributing $49.06 a year. The death benefit, the life insurance initially being purchased, is $126,000. As I mentioned, this is an option B policy. So that means as he contributes this $49.06 into this bucket, there's a certain amount of growth that happens. And as that cash value accumulates, this death benefit also increases. But the problem that those who don't provide IULs dislike about IULs it specifically is because there's some tie to the stock market associated with the performance of this vehicle. And so we're going to break that down. And a lot of people assume that the IUL is invested in the stock market, and that is incorrect. So we're going to kind of peel back the layers as to where the stock market impacts the growth inside of a product like this and where it doesn't. So we're going to kind of step through those things. But again, to set the stage, 38 years of age, putting in $49.06 into this bucket. What is this bucket? This bucket is what I'll call it in traditional life insurance terms, it's called the general fund. What is the general fund? Well, all cash value life insurance companies have a general fund. The whole life policies that provide a guaranteed dividend and that 4% growth, where does that come from? It comes from the performance of that life insurance company's general fund. So this dollar amount that's being contributed into this bucket is the same bucket that whole life policies, that people who have whole life policies are contributing into. It's the same, no different. What is this bucket comprised of? What is it so special about this general fund? This general fund is comprised of AAA rated bonds in most cases. Short answer to that question is this bucket is secure. If you think about the life insurance companies that offer I'll call it permanent life insurance policies like whole life, variable life, index, universal life. If you think about companies or life insurance companies that offer those types of products, they've been around for hundreds of years. They have been dealing with billions, if not trillions of dollars. And so they're not looking for, I'll call it aggressive or extreme growth. They're looking for security. And so the most secure way, they're also not looking for get rich quick. They're looking for consistent growth over time. So this general fund, meaning the dollars in this general fund, is invested in AAA rated bonds that are backed by the Fed, which is about as secure as you can get. So they're looking for consistent growth over time to reward you for putting your hard-earned funds into this bucket, into this general fund. There's growth on the money in this bucket as it relates to an IUL. That growth is somewhere between 3 and 7%. If you look at the history of IULs in this country, and if you look at some of the, I'll call it the A+ rated life insurance companies like Mutual of Omaha and such, you'll find that there has not been a year, there has never been a year that 5% growth inside the general fund, or that 3 to 7% growth inside the general fund has not been paid. So my point to this is this bucket that this 4906 is going in is pretty dang secure. And these aren't my words. This is what the data says. So as a result, when you put that 4906 in here, this is also where that 0% floor lives. That 0% floor lives in this bucket. What that means is when the 4906 goes in, there's a contractual guarantee from the life insurance company that the money going in it cannot be lost due to market risk. So again, why is this important? That means that this bucket is secure. All right, so let's break it down. So let's talk
Okay.
about year one. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so let's talk about year one.
Oh,
Go ahead.
well, Sequoia did have, she did have a good
Hey.
comment.
Come on.
She was saying infinite versus velocity banking, and could we just define those two strategies and what makes them different? She felt like the audience would benefit from knowing versus just throwing the terms out. I like this because oftentimes you hear people using them in the same sentence as if they're banking strategies, meaning they're somehow either versus. Sometimes you'll see blog posts or whatnot saying infinite versus velocity banking, which is really weird that they would say versus, right? Because it's not the same thing, but they do have some similarities and some benefits if you are able to tie them together. And that's essentially what we do is we learned how to tie them together, but then we learned that the vehicle and the structure is what makes the difference in how it performs and the outcome that you are able to achieve. So do you want to talk about that for just a moment?
Yeah, I can. So from a and I don't it won't be anything I reference on the vibe board. So if
Okay.
you want to take me off the vibe board, that's
Yeah.
fine as well. So infinite banking versus velocity banking, like what is it about them? How are they different? All that kind of fun stuff. Well, velocity banking, well, first off, they are both just a strategy. Let's start there. Velocity banking is a strategy. You cannot go anywhere and buy a velocity banking item. You can't. Infinite banking is a strategy. You cannot go to a life insurance company and buy an infinite banking policy. You can't. So it starts with first, they're both just strategies, meaning they are applications that if you apply them properly, if they're structured properly, you can do things better, greater, faster than you're currently doing them today. That's it. So they're both strategies. Now, velocity banking is a strategy that is truly just designed to help you eliminate and or reduce debt, ultimately resulting in increasing your cash flow. So it's applying, I'll call it non-traditional means like a debt tool, like a credit card, line of credit, home equity line of credit, business line of credit, you name it, but using a vehicle to drive your income through. And as a result of driving your income through a tool like a home equity line of credit or a personal line of credit, what that does is it causes that tool to be at the lowest balance possible. And then the idea is you would pay all of your normal bills from that same vehicle. When you do that, what happens? Well, your cash flow, your current cash flow ends up living on that tool, bringing that balance down to its lowest point. Well, as room is created on that debt tool, that line of credit, personal line of credit, home equity line of credit, you're then able to take dollars from that vehicle and pay off other debts, pay off other, I'll call it loans or lines of credit, like credit cards. And in doing so, what you end up doing is you end up paying off debt faster. You end up increasing your cash flow faster. It's all about the velocity of money, the movement of money. We've been educated to believe that as we receive income, that income goes out and pays a bill. And then we worry about the after effects. Well, in truth, all that does is assist the creditors and those banks who love to charge you fees. The idea is to restructure how income comes in and how bills are being paid so that you can take advantage of the movement of money, getting multiple uses out of the same dollar. That's velocity banking. Infinite banking, again, it's a strategy, and it's a strategy applied to a life insurance product. And if you were to read, Become Your Own Banker or whatever, the idea behind infinite banking started with whole life policies. So it's structuring a whole life policy so that you can do what? So that you can build cash value. So it's putting a certain dollar amount into the product, building cash value, and as that cash value is built, Again, same way you were leveraging lines of credit to be able to increase your cash flow, the cash value that you're building up inside of this cash value life insurance policy, you're able to leverage that cash value as well to be able to pay things off. So if you were normally paying a monthly payment towards your car note, and that car note that you were paying was going to that bank, well, here's an opportunity to leverage cash value inside your policy, pay off your car note, pay off what was going to the bank, and recapture that interest that you were spending elsewhere, and recapture that into your own bank, bring it back into your own system, your own I'll call it machine or system, and recapture that interest so that you can actually be able to go back to the well and leverage it over and over and over again. So the concept is similar in the fact that in most cases people use infinite banking to eliminate and or reduce debt. But in truth, in infinite banking, you can actually, there's a multitude of things that you can do outside of just simply paying a bill. You also have this dollar amount that you can use to leverage to be able to invest and create and build more assets. And if the product is designed properly, you can also use this vehicle to generate income, and it's a lifetime generation of income. Now, for that, it's about structure, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. In most people who offer infinite banking strategies, they offer it through a whole life policy. It is, at least as far as I know, it is not marketed as a vehicle that can produce income for you for life. It is marketed as, hey, here's a vehicle that you can leverage to be able to pay a bill or reduce debt or recapture expenses going out. Whereas if you structure a properly designed IUL, Index Universal Life Insurance policy, it can not only allow you to recapture to be able to pay off a debt, it can also produce or put you in a position where you can produce a lifetime of income. And we kind of phrase it as replace your employer when you get there. And what I'm kind of stepping through, or what I'll continue stepping through here in a moment is an IUL with leverage that allows you to expedite that process, speed up that process, so that you can now take that income faster while also eliminating and or reducing debt.
Yeah, one of the biggest,
Words,
lots of words. One of the biggest differences that I don't hear talked about much is income versus banking. So becoming your own bank is being able to get a loan, not having to get permission, right? Or having to qualify for those types of things. Essentially becoming your own bank is the biggest sell or the biggest draw to the concept of infinite banking. But we also like to remind people that this strategy was created by Nelson Nash long time ago, right? Decades ago, when some of the newer tools and newer opportunities that we have did not exist, or they did not exist for people like you and me, like us. If we didn't have $5 million in net worth, then we didn't qualify for some of these particular programs before, and now we do. So we also didn't understand how all of this worked to take advantage of it, right? We didn't understand that there were just rules and information we did not know, and that there was a heavy sense of gatekeeping on some of these strategies that you didn't have to have millions of dollars to do. As a matter of fact, the people who did understand these strategies were able to take themselves up into the top 1, 2, 3% of wealth because the difference was they had this information. Mm-hmm. The concept of becoming your own bank is complete in having leverage to do what you want, right? If you have enough in there, it's completely separate from generating enough income to last you through the rest of your life. That is a completely different conversation, which is why we are talking about why this is different, why it grows in a different way. And so that's just wanted to get that some clarity around that. The objective is different here too. So not only can you become your own bank, but the specific focus and why this is structured differently is to produce tax-free income for the rest of your life, not just past retirement age, but so that if you got sick at age 30, right? If you started this at age 20 or age 25, it doesn't matter. If you got sick and you were unable to work, I'm using this example because it's very near and dear to our story. I got very sick and I was completely bedridden for years. If I would have had access to a policy like this and had started this type of policy, I could have drawn income from this policy during that time period. Now, let's say I got better and I was able to go back to work. I wouldn't have to draw off of it, and it can continue to grow, but it's there when I need it. It's there producing income and providing the platform, the framework for a foundation for me to be able to leverage in that way, particularly in that way. This is different. I'm gonna stop talking now so we can talk about why it's different, because I think that's the most important part.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
So again, so here we are at year one. And again, this gentleman, 38 years of age, putting away, I know it's a weird number, but I just wanted to make sure it stayed apples to apples. So it's 4906 a year is what's being contributed. And in this case, here, I'll blow this up a little bit bigger. That 4906 is going in year one, buying a total life insurance of about 126,000 to start, but that death benefit is increasing as the years progress. Now, when that 4906 goes into this bucket is where that 0% floor lives, meaning it's protected. But the money in the bucket is going to grow. It grows somewhere between 3 and 7%. And I'm just using the average. Halfway between 3 and 7 is 5. So on average, the money in this bucket grows at 5%. Well, 5% of 4906 is $245. What happens with that $245? Well, this is where we are going to introduce risk. This is where the stock market comes into play. But let's be clear. The 4906 that's in this bucket is not touched at all. The 4906 that's in this bucket is protected from market risk. But we are now about to introduce market risk. This $245 is taken not by me. There's actuaries who work for these mutual life insurance companies. Take that $245 and they're going to take that $245 and buy what's called a one-time call option in the S&P 500 index. One time. Like, what does that even mean? Well, that means that there's going to be a play in the stock market. Let's kind of break down what a call option is. And again, this is I'm using previous year's performance. Let me go back. I'm saying, what if we started at year 2021? So we're looking back a few years, starting in 2021, putting in 4906 into this bucket, generating about 5% in 2021, taking that 245 and buying a one-time call option in the S&P 500 index. What does that even mean? Well, if you look at the performance of the S&P 500 over the last few years, if you look at 2021, in 2021, the S&P 500 started at 3,700. Started at 3,700. It's where it opened. And someone way smarter than me is going to say, hey, I believe the S&P 500 is going to close somewhere around 4,300. Okay. If it closes above that, I get to participate in that growth. If it closes below that, because of the 0% floor, I would lose the $245 that was used to buy the call option, but my original 4906 is untouched. So there is risk here. There's a risk of losing this $245. If the market, if I buy this call option and the call option does not do well, then the $245 that was used to buy the call option could be lost. Well, what happened in 2021? And again, the numbers are already there, but I pulled up, again, you've seen this before if you've been on this live before when I go through the buckets. If you look at the performance of the S&P 500 over the last few years. So in 2021, what did that performance look like? Again, the S&P 500 opened in 2021 around 3,700. It ended up closing right around 4,766, which that's about a 27% growth on the S&P 500. And the argument is, wow, the S&P 500 did 27%, but how much of that 27% did I get? How much of that 27% was did I take advantage of? So again, $245 was used to buy the call option. The call option did great, but I didn't participate in all 27%. Why? Well, if there's a cap on the amount that I can lose, there also is a cap on how much I can make. It's I'll call it a gift and a curse, meaning it's a part of the process of an S&P 500 index call option used inside of an index universal life insurance policy. I go back to that indexed um, graph that I showed. Here, I'll slide back over to it. Again, this is an indexed universal life insurance policy. So I participate in the growth of the market, but if the market crash, I don't participate in that. And so as a result, because of that 0% floor, that means I also have a cap on the maximum amount of growth that I can have. It's just a part of the process. But still, why do I like that? I like that because it allows for security, meaning I get to participate in the growth, but I don't participate in any of the losses. And we'll get into some of what the losses look like. So in this case, that 245 made a total of, or the 245 bought a call option in the S&P 500 index. S&P 500 index ended up making 27%. I participated in 10%. What that means is that's 10% growth on what? A lot of people think I only made 10% on the $245 that I spent for that call option. That's not true. The 10% is based on the total inside the bucket. So that 10% is based on the total amount inside the bucket that's working for me. So in this case, and again, this number would be a little bit off because there's fees and other things associated. But again, I'm just using round numbers. So what that's saying is the growth will be about 10% of this 4906. Well, what's 10% of 4906? How about 491 bucks? So the $245 that I use or that I leveraged or that grew inside of the general fund, that $245 was used to buy a call option. I made 10% on that on the dollar amount that was in the general fund, which equated to about 491 bucks. So that $491 goes back into the general fund. When that happens, let's see here, the money that was in the general fund ends up, so go that route. The money that was in the general fund ends up making me an additional $491. And as a result, hold on, I'll get there. And as a result, for that year in month one, my 496 4906 made an additional 4901. So in total, I now have 5397 at the end of year one working for me inside the general fund. Notice that's not a lot, but it's positive growth, positive performance. What does this number look like inside of an IUL? Because then this is a secure compound interest account, a leveraged IUL. What would this number look like inside of a non-leveraged IUL? It's the same. What happens in year one inside of a product like this is no different than what happens in any properly structured IUL. It's the exact same. Now, inside of a whole life policy, this will look a little bit different. But the bottom line is, whether we're talking IUL, a secure compound interest account, a leveraged IUL, in year one, the performance is the exact same. So now we move to year two. So in year two, we're adding an additional 4906. So on top of the 4397 that was already in the bucket from year one, we're adding an additional 4906 on top, which means there's a total of 10,303 working for me at the end of year two. And at that point, that 5% on 10,303 is what's now going to be used. So instead of it being only 5% of the original 4906, I have these two combined dollar amounts sitting inside this bucket, protected by the 0% floor. And that growth, that average growth of 5%, that $515 is now going to be used to buy a call option in the S&P 500 index. And again, this is 2022. Anyone remember what happens in 2022? I guess what I'm asking is, was it a good year for the market or was it a bad year for the market? And in most cases, 2022 was a bad year in the stock market. So again, I put 4906 in 2022. on top of the 5397 that was already there, which means I have a protected 10,303. It makes about 5%. We take that $515. I'm going to buy a call option in the S&P 500 index. Let's come over here again and let's look at 2022 in the S&P 500. In 2022, it opened at 47.96, opened pretty high, but it tanked. It closed at 38.39 in 2022. That's a loss of almost 20%. So if this wasn't an IUL, if it was a 401k with a match, my 401k took a 20% potential, 20% hit. But inside of a vehicle like this, what happened? Well, let's talk about it. So again, here we are in year 2. We've got $515 that we made inside the general fund. We take that $515, buy a call option. Again, the market opened fairly high, so whoever made that call option said, "Hey, I believe that performance is going to continue. I believe the S&P 500 is going to close somewhere around 47.90." Well, oops, it actually closed somewhere around 38.40. That's a loss of almost 20%. But because of the 0% floor, how was I impacted? Well, that $515 that was used to buy this call option, lost, gone, don't have it. But that 10,303 that was sitting in that bucket is not impacted. So as a result, how much did I make as a result of that call option? How about zero? I didn't make any money. I didn't lose any money, but I didn't make any money. So what that means is zero goes into this bucket. So at the end of year 2, what do I have? At the end of year 2, I've got the same 10,000 that I started with nothing extra. So I didn't make any money that year. So that 0% floor protected my my current gains, and I just didn't add to it. So I made money in year 1. I didn't lose money in year 2, but I didn't make money in year 2 either. But what happened in every other traditional retirement vehicle? If we're structuring this so that it can produce retirement income, what happened in every other traditional retirement vehicle? Was it protected by a 0% floor? And in most cases, no. So okay, that's year 2. Here comes year 3. Year 3, something special happens. Well, let me kind of highlight that. Let me come here. I had shared this last week. Some of the differences between a whole life policy, an IUL, and a properly structured leveraged IUL. So it's the same 4906 in year 1. It's the same 4906 in year 2. But in year 3, there's a change. There's a shift. Something different happens. At year 3, leverage is added to this process. Like, what does that even mean? So let's go back to that original bucket, this slide here. What does that even mean? Well, we're sitting here at year 3. You've contributed year 1. You've contributed year 2. We've got the performance based off that year 1 and year 2 performance. But at year 3, there's an additional dollar amount added. There's a match. Let's be clear. This isn't money that's just given to you without any expectation. Meaning, this isn't this is just a dollar amount that has no cost associated with it. But there is a dollar amount added that you're able to leverage and use to grow inside of this product. So let's kind of break that down. So again, going back to year 3. We've got the 4906 that we're contributing into this bucket.
Well, wait, it's cut off.
What? Oh, I follow what you're saying. Okay.
Oh, you just don't want to show a part of it?
Yeah, I was intentionally not showing the S&P 500 stuff.
Oh,
so I'm not there yet.
All right.
All right. So you've got the 4906 that you're contributing at year 3. And again, what year is this? This is 2023. So you got your 4906 is being contributed into this bucket. But in addition, there's a match that's added. Some people call it an index loan. Some people call it leverage. Some people call it a participating loan. The moral of the story here, let me blow this up a little bit. It has many words, many names, but at its core, all we're doing is we're borrowing 4906 from the life insurance company. Where's that 4906 coming from? Well, here's the expectation. You've contributed to your policy in year one. You've contributed to your policy in year two. At the start of year three, the life insurance company says, congratulations. Because you've contributed consecutively to your policy, you're now able to leverage, you're now able to borrow everything you contributed in year one, dollar for dollar, and pull that into year three. So this is a borrowed dollar amount from the life insurance company. We're able to borrow 4906, again, dollar for dollar, everything that was contributed in year one, 4906 from year one, and add that into this policy as brand new principal. So you're contributing 4906, the life insurance company is going to contribute 4906. But let's also be clear, this dollar amount is not free. I will break down how that math works, but just so we're clear, you're leveraging this dollar amount. What does leverage mean? You're borrowing this dollar amount. What does that mean? That means that there's an interest rate associated with this dollar amount. You didn't get it for free. Is that a bad thing? Well, I'm going to explain why it's not. But as far as the content going into the general fund, what does that look like? That now means not only is your 4906 going in, and that's 4906 on top of the 10,000 that was already there. So there's an additional 4906 going in, which means there's a total of $15,209 working for you. That $15,209 is also making 5%. And then this leverage dollar amount, this 4906, is going into this bucket as well, also working for you and also going to participate in that same 5% growth. So as a result, these two dollar amounts are now working for you, and these two dollar amounts, 245 off the 4906 that you leveraged, and $760 off the 15,209 that you made off of the money you contributed. So these two dollar amounts, these two separate dollar amounts, are now both going to be placed into a position to buy a call option in the S&P 500 index. And again, I'm not buying this call option. This call option is being purchased by an actuary who works for the life insurance company, someone trained and licensed to be able to do that. So this $245 is being used, and this $760 is being used to buy the call option in the S&P 500 index. And again, this is 2023. Well, what happened in the S&P 500 index in 2023? What kind of year was it? Was the year better than 2022? Absolutely it was. It started out fairly low, 38.24, and it was based off the performance of the previous year, right? But it closed up almost 14%. So in 2023, both of those dollar amounts participated in growth in the S&P 500. Now, obviously, in year three, you didn't participate in the full 14% growth. So the 245, let me slide that up. The 245 of the leverage dollar amount and the 760 of your dollar amount was used to buy the call option, and that call option did great, and so you participated in 10%. So what does that mean? That means that your money grew 10%, and that means, and that's what do I mean about your money? That's the total dollar amount in this bucket, 15,209, made an additional 10%. And in addition, the total dollar amount that was leveraged in this bucket, this 4906, also made 10%. When those dollar amounts are made, that's when we, I'll call it, satisfy our obligation to the life insurance company around borrowing this dollar amount. What do I mean? Well, okay, I've got 10% growth on this leveraged dollar amount, but I did not get this dollar amount for free. It cost me, on average, somewhere around 5% to borrow this money. So it cost me 5%. I just made 10%. Again, cost me 5%, but I just made 10. So now I'm going to, I'll call it, rectify the bill that I now owe to the life insurance company. It's not really a bill, but I don't know how any other way to word it. I've got 10% growth. I owe 5%. That means the amount that I make, the difference is what I get to keep. So I'm leveraging this 4906. It made me 10%. It cost me 5% to leverage it. I get to keep the difference. Now, what happens with that 5% that I pay back to the life insurance company? Those who don't understand this process think that that 5% goes to the life insurance company outside of this bucket. Like they're going to use that 5% to pay bills or something like that. And that is not what happens. This 5% that I owe the life insurance company stays in the bucket. Why does that matter? Well, if you notice, I get to build on that amount year after year after year. So not only am I building on the amount that I borrowed, I'm also building on the growth of the money that I borrowed, which means I make more money. So you made 10% on the leveraged dollar amount. It cost you 5. You get to keep 5. So 5% comes to you. And the 5% that you owe to the life insurance company also goes into this bucket. So what does that ultimately mean at the end of 2023? Well, from your perspective, let me get here. Your 15,209 made 10% on your money, and it made 5% on the money that was leveraged from the life insurance company. So if we were just simply looking at an IUL, again, just a regular IUL, if this was a regular IUL, you might have made this. But which is better, this or this? Again, we're just talking math. And if we're talking about compound interest, your money making money and the money that your money makes continues to make money. If we're just talking about how to build compound interest securely, if we were to compare this to a whole life policy, this same dollar amount would have been contributed into that whole life policy. But would you have achieved and or received 10% growth? Show me the whole life policy that achieves 10% growth year over year. Doesn't exist. So again, if the objective is to build wealth, generate income, which is better? So, okay, it doesn't stop here. That's just year 3. Let me come back to this. Oh, didn't want to do that. Let me do that. There we go. So at year, again, we're sitting here. So at year 3, your 4906 gained a little bit of leverage, and that leverage is also growing inside this policy. In year 4, you're going to do the exact same thing again. So at year 4, you've already borrowed 4906. So at year 4, you're going to borrow additional 4906. How is that even possible? How is it possible that I can borrow this same dollar amount again in year 4 and add it on top of what's already there? How is that even possible? Well, it's possible because the loan, the index loan, becomes self-collateralized every time you pay it off. What do I mean by self-collateralized? For that, I think I have to give an example. Let's say you got a loan from a bank to buy a car, and that loan was for $10,000. And you decided you don't want to hold this loan forever. So instead of paying monthly payments, you decide to pay off that $10,000 loan right now. You bought the car, got a loan for $10,000 to buy the car, and then in month 2, you decide to pay off the loan. Well, when you pay back the loan plus the interest that was owed on that loan, do you still owe the loan? You don't. So which means that loan has just now become self-collateralized. And if it's a bank that's been working with you, 9 times out of 10, they will allow you to borrow that dollar amount again. Why? Because you just paid back the principal and you just paid back the interest. Well, in this process, this 4906, this borrowed dollar amount, I'll make it a little bit bigger. In this process, this 4906, this borrowed dollar amount, where is it? Is it in your pocket? Can you physically touch it? Is it in your savings account? Do you have access to it at all? You don't. You're leveraging 4906 from the life insurance company. And so, which means If I'm borrowing money from the life insurance company and I owe that dollar amount to the life insurance company, how do I owe something that I don't have? Oh, and by the way, where is this 4906? This 4906 is sitting in the general fund. What do we know about the general fund? We know the general fund is probably the most secure place you can actually have a dollar. This general fund is where the 0% floor lives, which means how risky is it to you and the life insurance company for you to borrow this 4906? Meaning, what's the likelihood of that money being lost? What's the likelihood of the life insurance company of this 4906 all of a sudden not being there, not being capable of being used? It is very, very low. Why is that? This 4906 is not in your pocket, which means the principal is not owed to the life insurance company. The life insurance company already has the principal. So if the life insurance company already has the principal because it's sitting in the general fund, what's your obligation? What's my obligation? I only owe interest. And the minute I provide that interest to the life insurance company, that loan has just now become self-collateralized, which means I've paid back the principal, which I didn't have to begin with, and I've provided the interest that I owed. Once those two boxes are checked, I no longer owe this dollar amount, which means the following year, I get to borrow it again, which means I get to add an additional 4906 on top of the amount that I already borrowed. And then when I pay interest back on in that year, it becomes self-collateralized again, which means I don't owe it anymore, which means I get to borrow it again. But I want to fast forward. I want to fast forward to year 5. And I'm not going to fully go through year 5. I'm just want to highlight something.
We have a question when you're ready too.
All right, let me get through year 5 and we can do it.
Okay.
So in year 5, I'm going to add an additional 4906. This is my normal contribution year after year. But that leverage dollar amount, that match, that index loan, that leverage that I'm going to add into this process, what happens there? Well, I'm going to add not just the amount that I borrowed from year 1. And if you remember, the obligation that we had with the life insurance company was this. The life insurance company said, hey, congratulations. You contributed to your policy in year 1. You contributed to your policy in year 2. Now at year 3, you're able to borrow everything from year 1 and put it in year 3 as brand new principal dollar for dollar. Well, what happened at year 5? At year 5, we just met that obligation for a second time. What do I mean? If you had to consecutively fund your policy year 1 and year 2 in order to be able to borrow year 1 into year 3, then from year 3 to year 4, you just consecutively funded your policy again. So now at year 5, not only do you get to borrow year 1, but you get to borrow year 1 and year 2. So the amount of leverage has just now doubled. So what does that look like? Well, I've put in 4906, and I'll blow this up a little bit. I put in 4906 on top of whatever the year-end total was at year 3. So the year 4 is the 4906 I've contributed plus whatever was left. I'm sorry. The year 5 amount that I'm putting in is 4906 plus whatever the year 4 total is. And I'm going to multiply that by 5 and by a call option. But in addition, at year 4, there was a total of 9812. 9812 is what I leveraged from year 3 and what I leveraged from year 4. So a total of 9812 was already sitting in the bucket. And now at year 5, I get to borrow double the amount and add that into the bucket. Hopefully what you can see here is the leverage is starting to exponentially get bigger. And I want to make sure this is clear from a risk perspective, because people who don't understand this process will say this, man, that's a lot of borrowed money. You're going to owe that back to the life insurance company. That's going to end up coming out of your death benefit. You're going to end up, your policy is going to end up imploding because the leverage becomes so large that it's actually larger than what you've contributed. And none of that is true, because the money that you're leveraging is sitting in the most secure place it could possibly be. And as a result, you don't owe principal and interest. You only owe interest. And now, What comes after that is, okay, I get it. I have the ability to make money on the money that's sitting in this bucket when the market is doing great. Because when the market is doing great, I'm making somewhere between, I'll call it 7 to 10% year over year on the money that's in that bucket. Man, that's awesome. But the market is not great every year.
Right. That's what Elizabeth wanted to know. What happens if the
I,
loan interest is higher than the gain for the year,
I'm
like a zero
headed
floor
there.
year?
I'm
Yep.
headed there. So, what happens when the market crashes? What happens if I started my policy this year and we change presidents and I've got leverage involved? Like the life insurance company is going to want their money. You told me that, hey, I get to leverage this dollar amount. I don't owe principal, but I do owe interest. If the market crashes and I don't make the interest, who's going to pay the life insurance company back? Well, let's talk about it. And that's kind of the what if point. What
Okay.
if the market crash? So I want to break that down. And again, I'm going to attempt to go slow here. So I am, in order to understand how the market, well, what happens inside of a product like this when the market crash, I kind of restructured the example. So the example looks like this. Let's say you have the same life insurance policy, but you have $10,000 of your money. Here, I'll make it bigger. You have $10,000 of your money in the bucket and you're borrowing 10,000 from the life insurance company. So again, I'm just restructuring the example. Again, you've got 10,000 of your money in the bucket and you're borrowing 10,000 from the life insurance company. So the question I love to ask is how much is actually working for you inside the bucket? How much money is actually working for you in the general fund? Well, if 10,000 of your money goes in and 10,000 of the life insurance company's money, 10,000 of the borrowed money goes in, 10 plus 10, there's $20,000 working for you in the bucket. I don't think that anyone will argue with that. But what happens if the market crash? Why did I choose 2015? Well, let's go look at it. Do I have it? Oh, you know what? I might not have it. Let me check real quick. I don't. I knew there was something I forgot to bring over, but that's okay. You can just take my word for it. What happened in 2015? In 2015, the market crashed. So if I put 10,000 of my money in the bucket and I borrow 10,000 from the life insurance company and my money made 5%, the life insurance company's money made 5%, take that, someone way smarter than me takes that $500 and buys a one-time call option in the S&P 500. And I say, or the actuary says, I believe the S&P 500 is going to close somewhere around 2,100. And what actually happened in 2015 was it closed less than that, meaning the market crashed. That means the $500 that I use and the $500 that I leverage from the life insurance company that I use to buy these call options, I lose. Which means I don't make 7%. I'm not making 10%. But the life insurance company is owed a dollar amount. Well, there are two things that are going to happen when this occurs, because you have to look at things from the life insurance company's perspective. The life insurance company actually understands how compound interest works. The life insurance company, in this case, actually wants you to be successful. Why would they want you to be successful? Well, think about it. If you're borrowing money from the life insurance company and it's costing you this much, that means that interest rate that it's costing you, they make year after year after year. So they would actually want to make money when you're making money. And so when the market crashes, they're just as impacted as you are. So there are two things that are going to happen. Again, you have to look at it from the life insurance company's perspective. When the market crashes, the first thing they're going to say is, you know what? Don't worry about it. That interest that you owe us, however much it is, don't even worry about it. We're going to defer that interest until you die. Well, if you remember, we purchased a life insurance policy for $126,000. Let's say, God forbid, you passed away in this year. Meaning you put 10,000 into your policy, you've leveraged 10,000 from the life insurance company, there's 20,000 working for you, and God forbid you passed away when the market crashed. The life insurance company is going to say, okay, let's calculate how much interest is owed. In 2015, you owe 5%. on $10,000. 5% on $10,000 is $500. So you owe $500. But again, you passed away. Well, before your beneficiaries receive $126,000, the life insurance company is going to take $500 out of that $126,000. That means that now you have now paid back the money that was owed, and then your beneficiary is going to receive the difference between $126,000 and $500. I don't think your beneficiaries would miss the $500. And as I mentioned, you wouldn't necessarily know what happened because you're no longer here. And from the life insurance company's perspective, they believe in compound interest as well. So they want you to be successful. So why would they defer this $500? They defer it because they know the more you pay inside this policy, the less they make. So the first thing that happens is they're going to defer the interest until you die. That's number one. Well, if the market crashed in 2015, and then the market crashed in 2018, and then the market crashed in 2022, and then the market might crash in 2025, and then the market might crash in 2028, how do you keep track of all of these deferred interest payments? So there's some accounting that has to be done. And for those of you who know anything about accounting, this is simply a ledger move, meaning they have to keep track of the interest that's owed. How do they keep track of the interest that's owed? I'm going to show you. So again, in this case, someone owes the life insurance company $500. 5% of 10,000 is $500. Someone owes the life insurance company $500. Well, you've got 10,000 of your money in the bucket, and there's 10,000 of the life insurance company's money in the bucket. There's $20,000 in the bucket. What if we just simply move? I knew that was going to happen. Let me do this. What if we just simply move $500 from this side of the bucket over to this side of the bucket? Again, we don't owe principal. We don't owe $10,000 because the $10,000 the life insurance company already has. Our only obligation is interest. So to keep track of how much interest is owed, the life insurance company says we're going to make an adjustment to the balance sheet. We're going to move $500 from your side of the balance sheet over to our side of the balance sheet. But what happened inside the bucket? Meaning, if I move if I move $500 from my side of the bucket over to this side of the bucket, what ultimately happens? Well, on my side, it's now showing $9,500. And on this side, it's now showing $10,500. But remember, both of the dollar amounts in the bucket are doing what? They're both working for you. So once we do this, once we make this ledger move, how much money is actually working for you at the end? Like, how much did the accumulated value inside the bucket change? It didn't. You started this process with $20,000, 10,000 of your money plus 10,000 of the life insurance company's money. You ended this process, and that's kind of what goes here. You ended this process with 9,500 of your money plus 10,000. Oh, keep the colors right. Plus 10,500 of the life insurance company's money. If you add those $2 amounts together, you still have $20,000 working for you. Now, the argument might be, but $500 of my money has now moved over to this other side, and I won't be able to make 10% on my money. That's true. But is your money still working for you? Is the $500 that you move to this side of the bucket, is it still making money for you on that side of the bucket? It is. So even if the market crashes, there are levers in place to make sure that your policy is still whole. Because what's the commitment? What's the guarantee? The life insurance company only offers one guarantee, and that is the money in this bucket cannot be lost due to market risk. Did the life insurance company fulfill their obligation? Was their money lost inside this bucket due to a loss in the market? It was not, because you started with $10,000. I'm sorry, you started with $20,000 in the bucket. You ended with $20,000 in the bucket. And now you move on to the next year.
We have some questions. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Let's get them in here. We have, so we addressed Elizabeth's question, which was a great question. And then next up, we have Lolo. Hey, Lolo.
Welcome back. Haven't seen
Yeah,
you in a
great to
while.
see you in here. She says, is the amount borrowed from the life insurance policy put into the bucket monthly or in one lump sum?
That's a beautiful question. It depends on how you're contributing to your policy. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're putting away, let's say in my policy, I'm putting $1,000 a month. And let's say in my wife's policy, I'm putting away $12,000 a year. Well, if I put in $1,000 a month, the call option happens in I think it's called year to year, one time point to point call option, meaning it happens once per year, and it happens whenever there's a dollar amount contributed into the policy. So let's call it month one. I put in my $1,000. The call option won't be done until the 364th day, or right around my anniversary date is when the call option will be done on that $1,000. Well, when I add an additional $1,000 at month two, I now have more money working for me, and that call option is also going to be done on the 364th day. So it's annual point to point is what it's called. I couldn't get it out, but it's called an annual point to point call option. So if I'm putting in $1,000 a month, that call option is happening 12 times. But if I'm only contributing one time, $12,000 in month one, let's say, there's a call option happening, but the bulk of the call option happens on the anniversary date of when that $12,000 goes in. So is the amount borrowed from the life insurance company put in the bucket monthly or in one lump sum? In most cases, it's put in at the start of your anniversary date or at the start, right around the anniversary date at year 3 as a lump sum, because it's all going in one time. But the growth inside of your account is happening depending on how you're contributing, either annual point to point, meaning on a monthly basis, or 12 times within a cycle, or it's happening at one time, depending on what you're putting in a lump sum. So kind of answered multiple questions in there, but the moral of the story is that leverage dollar amount, the amount leveraged from the life insurance company happens as a one-time lump sum going in at the start of the policy. So that way it's working for you throughout the year.
All right. We just summed up what you were talking about as a 12-piece bucket of freedom in the chat, and now everybody's hungry. We're all hungry now. Thanks for that. Thanks, Lolo. That was a great question. All right. Crafts by You says, can we add a little something extra in year one outside of the premium? It's a great question.
And that's the part. Usually what I tell people is the larger year one, the larger year 3. One of the most critical periods inside of a product like this is year 1. So can you add a lump sum to jumpstart how things are going to look in year 3? You absolutely can. And I would actually encourage it. But you also have the ability to put in an additional amount every year. And I don't think anyone else used this term, but I kind of label it as there's an enrollment period that happens around your anniversary date. And that's where we can make adjustments to your policy. And again, just we've been comparing whole life and IULs. What makes this different from a whole life policy is most people who provide whole life scare people with the term MEC. Meaning, if I put more into the policy, aren't I in jeopardy of MECing my policy? Well, if this is properly structured, you can't MEC your policy. And if you're wanting to put more income or money into your policy, there are specific periods when we can do it, and there are certain dollar amounts that we can put in. But understanding when those periods are will prevent you from being able to make your policy. But if we were talking about whole life, you can't. You would have to start a brand new policy, which is why most people who do infinite banking have multiple whole life policies, where most people who do a product like this, use a product like this to be able to generate income, the policy grows with you. We're able to make adjustments with that policy so that you can get more money in when you need it to. But I know your original question was, can you add more up front? Yes, you can.
You know, we have a lot of different types of insurances that we are not pretty non-negotiable for the most of us, right? So
Mhm.
we've got car insurance, home insurance. There are certain insurances that we have to have. What's crazy is the amount of insurance that we have on the things that really matter. So you can't pay for that home, you can't pay for that car if you don't have income, right? You can't go earn the income if you don't have your health, right? So we're so backwards in how we structure this, but the one thing that we should definitely have, because it feeds everything, is income insurance. And essentially what you've just described is how we guarantee to have income assurance and insurance that will provide income. There's
You're absolutely right.
there's nothing else that's like it, and we do have to. Why aren't we having more conversations around this so that some of these vehicles could improve? If we think this is the best that's out there now, imagine what it could look like in 5 years if we decide as people, right, that this is what is important to us, that we are demanding that they come up with solutions like this, that they change the rules, that they allow certain functions to happen so that more people can have income insurance. We need that. If they're going to make health insurance affordable, if they're going to make homeowners insurance, car insurance, there's so many people out here who benefit from us having to have insurance in particular things. But the one thing that feeds it all, starts from the top, is income. So if you're not taking this maybe seriously, that you should be able to have a tool that provides income for you tax-free for the rest of your life and will continue to grow, not just while you're living, because that's another thing. Some of these whole life policies that we've seen, they're not set up or structured so that the cash value will continue on past or be added with the death benefit, right? So what does that mean for your cash value? That means, right, you become your own bank while you're here. It's living insurance, it's life insurance, use it while you're living. You hear this term a lot. What they don't say though is, and then you give all that cash value back to the bank, back to the life insurance company when you pass away, and your heirs only get the death benefit. Well, what if you only bought a policy for $250,000, but you've funded far more than that, right? What if you have however it's structured definitely matters, but we have to start changing the conversation. We need better tools, and we see where things are going. The tools that we had from the 70s and 80s and the conversations around wealth building have definitely changed, and they have to change because our economy is not even following a standard inflation rate. There are different things following different rates. For instance, the housing market. One point that I wanted to make tonight about this particular type of strategy is around risk. That's probably the most pushback that we get, is people who are seeing risk, right? And they assume to themselves like, well, I would much rather have a 4% guarantee than to take any risks, and so therefore it feels safer. But what is it that you're going to use this policy for? For most people, either they don't know, have no idea, infinite banking is just an attractive idea to them, they have no idea how they're actually going to use it, or it's real estate. It's one or the other. The majority of them, those are the two key things. Either I just like the idea and I want to be able to use it, or I plan to use it for real estate at some point. It's in the cards for me. I'm throwing those cards out there. I want to buy a property and I want to use my policy to be able to do it. The amount of risk in purchasing a property alone is far greater, and using a policy, just not without using a policy, right? Take that out of the equation. Just purchasing a property in general, you don't get to control the market. You don't get to control your spread. You don't get to control whether or not you ripped open a wall or a roof or the foundation and learned that now you can't flip a house because the money that you have to put into the house in order to be able to sell the house, you will never get it back out. That's a risk that a lot of people do not calculate. It's a very romantic idea, this infinite banking with whole life policies, the idea that you have to continue going out there and taking risks with borrowed money. How big is the risk that you're thinking of taking? This has to be part of the conversation. This has to be part of the equation, has to be part of the consideration in terms of what vehicles you choose. Now, becoming your own bank, having the permission, all of those things are wonderful things to have. But at the end of the day, if the reason why you're thinking about jumping into real estate, if the reason why you're thinking about starting a business is so that you can produce income, then focus on that. What is going to get you there faster? What is going to actually be designed to produce income that's not going to require you, your time, and an insane amount of risk or investment up front that you could just potentially lose? This should be something that's guaranteed, owed to us. No different than Social Security, which is not guaranteed to continue, right? A lot of people are banking on that, but it's not guaranteed. And we have to start these conversations to start taking control so that we have these options and that these options are guaranteed to us. I'm sure we got more questions. Okay. So we've got some comments. I know that for sure. Oh, hey, Frankie. I like seeing Frankie in here. If you have, if you've started with your secure compound interest account, you'll meet Frankie at some point. So that everybody knows who Frankie is. Okay, it's more risky going to Walmart. Yeah, there's just risk out here in the majority of things that we talk about in the investment world, investment spaces. So whatever these asset classes are, there's risk everywhere. But I think that we are getting burned out, learning, having to become experts in different industries. And the truth is, everyone's chasing the same goal. It's income, it's passive income. It's having enough so that you can fire your job, fire your boss. You can walk away from your business. You can ride off into the sunset. You can enjoy, put more life in your years and years in your life. Not this or that, right? It's both. We want to be able to do this. We see others who are able to do this, and we know that some of the difference between us and them is that they're just taking action and they have access to information maybe we don't have, and we need to be able to apply it. But if the goal, if we're all chasing the same goal, then why are we getting so risky? Why are we getting so inundated with investing an insane amount of time toward achieving this? For instance, if it's starting a business, for a lot of the fire people, they retired early. They were promoting it all over YouTube, but what they weren't saying was now they're dependent on their YouTube income, right? This is the passive income. They have to make videos. They have to be out here talking about things. And if their topics aren't performing, their income is down and they start panicking and freaking out. So now they're selling something and they got something else to sell and whatever the thing is, right? Because they're panicking. There are just better options out here. And we should not have to be in a position where if we're working smarter, not harder, we won't be in a position where we have to go back to work, where we have to give what others will allow us to have. Like, can I please, whatever the job is, can I please do it at 65 or 70 because I just realized that I better get back out here and go back to work? Because this economy, I was not seeing this coming. That's what a lot of people are today. Imagine what that will be like in 10, 20, 30 years from now. We have to do better. And when we know better, we can do better, right? Hey, Charles. Okay. If you have a question, put a Q in front of it. If you already put one in there, I will try to find it.
Yeah, I was kind of
I'll do my
scrolling
best.
through. I haven't run across any yet.
Okay, good.
I think we're in good shape.
All right, sweet. Well, that's all I had to contribute for this particular topic, but it doesn't go without saying, Sequoia wants the tea, so let's give it to her. We did a whole live stream, by the way, on the fire community and those who are quitting. They have announced that they're quitting fire. We did a whole 1 or 2 live streams on that. It's financial independence, retire early. Yeah, that's what FIRE stands for. And so I don't know I can't name the FIRE people, but we did do a live stream about this. And it's not to shame anyone. It's to say we're all out here for trying to get the same thing. And what we can't do are cut these corners and find these hacks and duct tape things together and then say, look what I made, right? This is the 5-minute crafts version of retirement. We can't do that. It doesn't hold up. And that's what they learned, is that it's not holding up. There's not enough glue holding it together.
Well, I think that's the part. If we're talking about, because it's all about security, right? If it's not about retirement, it's about security. It's about the ability to be able to sustain your lifestyle, and not have to either worry about going back to work or running out of money. And
Yeah.
so, one of the pillars that I felt was missing from that fire discussion was the security piece, and it was evident that the vehicle that they were investing in to be able to hit whatever that number, that age was, and that income to be able to quit and fire their job wasn't sustainable, because the vehicle that they were putting their money in wasn't a sustainable vehicle. Like, that's the problem. The problem is it was all a part of it was all stock market based. Let's just put it that way. And so
Yeah.
our thought process was, well, what if you take this same concept and just restructure the vehicles that you're putting your money in? Being able to hit your fire number is a definite possibility, but it's all about security. You merge growth with security and leverage, you're in business. And so that was kind of the thought process. It was just kind of breaking down, how you're able to actually hit that versus, hey, I'm going to start start heading down this path and then quit. That's
Yeah.
what was happening.
As the queen says in her Family Feud voice, good answer, good answer.
Bruh.
Okay, we've been looking for what is this experience that we can curate here on YouTube. We kind of treat these like classes, like come back for the next class, right? This community, we're just having these discussions and talking about things that are important, where everybody everyone is, and how can we serve? So that's really what we're out here doing. Okay, we'll answer these questions before I move on to my next point. How do we need to be rated physically to qualify? That's a great question.
So, well, let's first step back and say, what is it you're actually buying? You're buying a life insurance policy. And so, in any instance where you're talking about buying insurance, from the life insurance company's perspective, they're looking at you as the asset. So, your health is very much important. As far as physically, I'm going to say that varies to everybody. But what are the variables that impact that? Your health, obviously, height and weight absolutely plays a role. In most cases, I would say, if I was to put a number on it, 98% of the people that apply, or maybe 95% of the people that apply end up getting approved. That 5% that doesn't, I'd say it's usually due to a health condition that it may be incurable, or a disease that is incurable, or maybe you had a health scare or a health issue, and you're just not out of the window of where it may return. For instance, I've had prior cancer patients get approved, but it was because they were outside of whatever that window was that the actuaries determined they needed to be out of in order to qualify. One of the auto declines that I've seen is people who have some type of health condition and they have chosen not to address it. So a prime example is, let's say I'm a diabetic and I have chosen to not take my insulin, not regularly see my doctor, not take care of my height, my weight, my diet, and all those kind of things. I'm just winging it, and assuming that everything will be okay. Maybe I don't have any symptoms, or it hasn't caused any type of negative effects in me doing so. But from the life insurance company's perspective, they see you as a risk, versus the guy who has been diagnosed with diabetes, and they have the documentation that shows their visits to the doctor have been frequent. They are taking their medication, their height, their weight, and their diet is in order, and all of those things are documented and is verified. Then okay, you're seen as less of a risk, and therefore it is easier to approve you. But everyone is different. It really depends on your specific situation. So it's not everyone has to fit in this box. I would say it's very much different for everyone.
And some people have been surprised. They hear something like that and then they just assume, oh, not me.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't get approved. And then they do get approved, actually. So don't count yourself out. It's worth going down that road to just at least be able to see or
I've had
understand.
several prior cancer patients get approved going into it really believing that it wasn't even possible.
There's also instances where some people might have just had to change a few
Right.
factors of their health in order to qualify. So just reapply, just apply again, right?
Yeah, in most cases, the again, I'm not an actuary, I'm not a life insurance company. I don't handle any part of this process, but in most cases, those who have gotten denied do get an explanation as to why, and usually they also provide. And if these things are addressed, please reapply. Or if this situation has been negative for this period of time, then you can so they usually give an explanation and some details as to what it would look like for you to be able to reapply.
Yeah. And when our team's in the chat, that's a great time to ask questions too, because Frankie, she is so good at getting this information to people. So as soon as they have any sort of information that says, hey, we need you to go and get this information for us so it can help us to make our decision, she's the one who you would be talking, she's your liaison. Fancy. Okay, Elizabeth says, what would be an unthinkable situation when we lose our long term investment? Is it possible inside this type of insurance?
What are we calling the meaning if we're using this product for, let's call it infinite banking, and you are invested in a long-term investment? I guess I'm not clear as to what is meant.
Yeah. Well,
What would be the unthinkable situation when we lose our long-term investment? Is it possible inside of a type of insurance? I guess I'm not clear as to what it is you're asking, because
can we get a
inside of the
fifty-fifty?
product,
Phone a friend?
inside of the product, what's happening? Let's say you don't touch it at all. What's happening inside of the product is you're leveraging previous year's performance and pulling it back into the policy, and you're growing based off that. So, what's the risk inside the product? The risk inside the product is how often does the market crash? Well, we've kind of done the math around. It would take approximately 5 to 6 consecutive down markets for a product like this to implode or to eat itself. So, if you look at the current performance, current market performance over the last 35 years, we're talking about on average somewhere around 7.2%. So the data says internally, inside the product, pretty dang secure. If you are leveraging the money in the product to go do something externally, is there a situation where things don't go well on whatever that investment is, and how would that impact? Well, I think this is kind of easy to explain as well. The money that you leverage inside the policy, you're not actually taking money out of the policy. So let me use an example. Let's say you've got $200,000 in cash value, and you are borrowing 50,000 of that to go do infinite banking with an external investment. So you're borrowing 50,000, you're going to take that 50,000 and then go do something externally. But what's actually happening inside the policy when you borrow that 50,000? Well, if you started with 200,000, you have 200,000 in cash value, you borrowed 50, you might be thinking that now you only have 150,000 in cash value. And that's not true. When you borrow 50,000, you have a check written for 50,000 that you can go externally use, but your 200,000 never changed. So what's happening internally inside the policy is your same 200,000 is still growing at the same rate. You just happen to borrow 50,000, which means it becomes a ledger move. We're going to move 50,000 from your cash value over to the line of credit that you're leveraging. So it's accounted for, but your cash value didn't change. And so, because of how the product grows, your 50,000 is actually still making you money inside the policy. Can you say the same thing if you borrow that 50,000 out of a whole life policy? Short answer to that question is you can't. But inside of a properly structured product like this, the 50,000 that you borrowed is still making you money in the policy. Now, you take that 50,000 outside of the product and you go buy a property, and for whatever reason, it fails and you lose the $50,000. Well, again, internally in your policy, it's not noticeable because the money is still working for you. Do you owe $50,000 to your policy? Do you owe that cash value back? Yes. On paper, yes, you do. But inside of a properly structured policy, again, depending on when this is done, you have the option of worrying about whether or not you should pay that back or not. What do I mean? If you're early into your policy, it would be it's to your benefit to make sure any money leveraged outside the policy is put back, and that's standard infinite banking 101. If you're going to borrow money from your policy, whatever you're doing, make sure you're paying that interest back to yourself, like standard. But later in your policy, years after the leverage has been added and money has been compounding inside of the product, is it necessary for you to pay that $50,000 back? Like, what is the true impact? In some cases, it may be negligible. So my point is, you have an option. There's a discussion to be had. So, again, that answered whether you're talking about internal of the policy or external. Hopefully, that answered kind of all of it, regardless of which you were asking. So.
Okay, Gary says, how long does one keep on taking loans? Down the line, 30 years from now, my insurance will be expensive since it's annually renewing term and the interest cost will be high. How is that managed?
Yep, and that's actually a standard life insurance. I'll call it. Usually, when I meet with clients and they bring their life insurance guy, that is the standard question that I receive. It's leverage on top of leverage on top of leverage, and the piece that you have to remember is you don't owe principal and interest. So if you keep taking loans, meaning if you are using the leverage feature and that leverage is going back into your policy, right? And it's continuing to compound. And so there's more and more money working for you internally in the policy. The assumption is that's a lot of leverage internally that I am going to owe back to the life insurance company. And it's not, because you don't owe that principal. That principal is working for you. You only owe the interest piece. And every year you make money in the policy, it pays the interest that you borrowed for that year, which means the loan becomes self collateralized. So the worst case scenario is, God forbid something happened to you, you would owe the interest for that year. But the prior years, you do not owe interest because the loan is self collateralized. Even in the example where I showed 2015 and what happens when the market crashes and we moved $500 from one side of the bucket over to the other, when you do that, that loan, that $10,000 just became self collateralized. By moving that $500 from one side of the bucket over to the other side of the bucket, self collateralized that loan, which means I no longer owe it, which means I no longer owe interest. Now, the following year, when I borrow a brand new dollar amount, that's a brand new dollar amount that has a brand new interest owed. So, worst case scenario is I might owe interest for that year, God forbid, if something happened to me. But internally, I don't. The loan becomes self collateralized. And that's a hard concept. Like, we could almost do a live just on that subject alone. But
Sounds good.
let's say you didn't mean that.
Okay.
Let's say you didn't mean internally. Because when this policy matures and you start taking income from this policy, that dollar amount you're taking income out is actually a borrowed dollar amount as well. So what if 15, 20 years from now, you're now taking income out of this policy of, I'll make up a number, $50,000 a year in income. That means you're borrowing $50,000 and you are not paying that $50,000 back.
Well, this is the reverse velocity banking conversation that we were having, right?
Sort of. The income generated by a policy like this is very intentional. It's very specific. Meaning, if we've identified that you can take $50,000 a year out of this policy, that is because your cash value, and let's say $50,000 a year out of this policy is income that you're going to take that you're not going to pay back, is approximately 10% of your cash value.
Right.
So if you're taking $50,000 a year, working backwards, that means that you have $500,000 in your policy as cash value. So you're taking $50,000 a year, which is 10%. 10% of $500,000 is $50,000 a year. Well, that's intentional, because that means your $500,000 is actually making 13, 14, 15, 16, 17%. And again, I can show you the data. But simple math, if your $500,000 is making 13% and you borrowed $50,000 as income, 10%, again, you made 13, you took 10% as income, is there a dollar amount that's owed? Meaning, do you have to pay anything back? No. because I borrowed less than I'm making.
right,
There's a spread there that stays inside the policy and pays for what I've taken.
right.
So again, this all ends up being a mathematical equation. But this comment, I'm telling you, Gary, this comment is a very consistent comment for those who sell life insurance because this is seldom understood. This is a self-collateralized loan, so it's not loans that leverage that is building on top of each other. It is one loan that is owed at that one time, and as long as the market does well, and it doesn't have to do great, it just has to do well. As long as the market does well, you pay for what you've leveraged. So the argument is, well, what happens if the market crashes 5 years in a row? Yeah, that would be a problem. But what happens to your 401k if the market crashes 5 years in a row? What happens to your 401k if the market crashes next year? What happens to real estate if the market crashes 5 years in a row? Like,
Right,
who is going to be okay if the market crashes 5 years in a row? That's a bit extreme.
right.
Let's talk about actual. What
Yeah.
has actually happened? 3 market crashes consecutively is the Great Depression and the dot-com bubble. So as long as we're talking about normal market performance, this product outperforms everything else.
How many Great Depressions did you say it could withstand?
2.
2 in a row.
Approximately 2 Great Depressions.
Yeah, that's highly unlikely.
But
Okay.
I can just go back to, let's say it is likely. Like this, if we're in the midst of 2 Great Depressions, the last thing we're talking about is life insurance.
Yeah, for sure.
Like this is The Walking Dead. We're talking about how to use fishing line to be able to kill zombies at this point.
Yeah. Which is, to be an interesting conversation. I remember when we used to have that. We're like, you have 10 minutes in a backpack. What are you packing?
Yes.
We used to do that with the kids at
The
the
apocalypse
kitchen table.
is now, and you can only grab. Yeah,
You got 10 minutes in a backpack. What are you putting in there? Quick
I'm
answer.
putting fishing line in.
Yeah. I do want to talk about, there is a conversation to be had around reverse velocity banking. We call it this because this is essentially the concept behind this. We named it reverse velocity banking because the people who understand velocity banking would understand how leverage is working, right? Yep. Why chunking or leverage is working, and how it compounds, those results compound over time. The majority of people, though, who are interested in velocity banking are interested because they're wanting to pay their home off faster. Sound familiar? Well, now that we've explored how a SCIA can significantly enhance your financial growth through the buckets, we're going to take it a step further. So for those who are looking to pay off your home as quickly as possible, what if I told you that there's a way to leverage the power of this particular type of policy, secure compound interest account, and velocity banking together to not only pay off your home faster, but also build substantial wealth simultaneously? We're not talking about this or that. There's a lot of conversations on this or that. We're talking about this and that. But the vehicles that you use, the tools that you use, how you're structured in doing this, that's the part that matters. It's the part that where if somebody's just telling you use these vehicles and you don't understand why they work and why you're choosing this, it would be difficult for you to make sure that you are staying the course, right? That you are going to get the results that you are expecting to get. And also you wouldn't understand how you might influence or impact those results with your decisions, right? So that's why we focus heavily on education here. So I guess if you are looking to maximize your financial potential by combining the best of both worlds, you're in the right place. So if you are wanting to accelerate your debt repayment while your wealth grows and at an impressive rate, we've got you covered. We've got a ton of free resources too. I think it's just important to consider integrating strategies together and feeling, I think I always go back to this. It's feeling like and believing that you're capable of learning this stuff.
Possible.
For a lot of people, their brains just shut down, and I totally get it, completely get it. For a lot of people, they're watching this live stream right now and they're like, this looks like I'm watching a Kung Fu film because the audio and the video is not matching up. I don't know if you knew that, but that's how it looks for them. And Nathan said it. This looks like watching Kung Fu. So for those of you who've hung in here with us, thank you. We really appreciate you. For those who are watching this in a replay, seriously, the goats, for real. We can't end without giving away some boats, though. And if you are learning these strategies, if you are finding ways to implement them, if you are leveling up and you are spending your time here with us or watching our lives, binge watching, whatever you're out here doing to educate yourself, then you got to know about the boat now. You've probably already heard about the boat and why we give the boat away. But just in case, let's roll it again. In 1998, a British rowing team dreaming of the Olympic gold found themselves ranked 7th. Their focus had always been on the competition day, but they realized the keys to reaching their highest potential were hiding in the decisions that they'd make over those next 2 years.
Faced with two obvious choices, continue their current path and expect the same result, or give up, they discovered a third transformative option. They united under one guiding question: will it make the boat go faster? Every decision, every action was weighed against this mantra. If the answer was yes, they could, but would have to do it.
If the answer was no, it was forbidden, non-negotiable. Prior to the competition, this team was doubted and ridiculed, but no one knew what they had been doing. And once they hit the water, they were nearly unrecognizable, achieved their pinnacle, and won the gold. So we ask you,
What is your goal? What are you willing to do to achieve it?
will your story feel unrecognizable, even to you? Are you willing to light your beacon and stay focused, stay committed? Is your story non-negotiable, or are you waiting to find out how you ranked? Your financial future is not a game. You are only competing with yourself and those in the boat with you, your family and the many generations to come.
Will this make the boat go faster? A sounding alarm, a beacon of clarity amidst turbulent life decisions.
It's not just about speed, but direction, purpose, and an unwavering commitment. Every choice, every sacrifice aimed at the goal.
The first agreement this team made was to become fully self-directed, making their health their wealth, adopting a new perspective on their time and freedom, and the decisions they could fully control to reach their goal.
Will we make your boat go faster? That is our pledge to you. Our mission is to arm you with knowledge, strategies, and insights to ensure that not only you reach the goal, but you do so long before your race is over. All right. I don't know who put hashtag boat in the chat, but I'm going to tell you right now. I think we got a guarantee winner tonight. It is your day. Crafts Bayou. That's what I'm talking about. She got her boat tonight. Congratulations. I love that for you. So if you won a boat, it was all for you. Everybody else just hung out. They hung back. They were like, let this lady get her boat.
Congratulations.
She needs it. Yes. Congrats. We have we got some more people in here. It won't spin it again. What is the deal with this thing?
It's off craft.
We're gonna reset it. We can do it one more time. All right, here we go. You know, it's trying to not let us be great, and I don't like that. I don't like that attitude about this. Start. Let's see if we can do it again. I don't know. It only wants Crafts Bayou to have a boat, guys.
A boat she will get.
We don't make the rules. This thing it's giving favoritism. I'm just gonna be honest. We've tried to reset it a couple times. It is not working. Yeah, it's discriminating against everybody else. It's like, no, let this lady have her light. Let her have all the light. Let her have all the shine. today is your day. Yeah.
That's
Oh,
all right.
Craft Spy, she said, Aaliyah rocked the boat. Why didn't I think of that? Yes. Doing it. Okay. All right. Well, I think we've
I think
got Hiladon.
Elizabeth had one more question. I don't know that we
Okay.
addressed it. I went ahead and highlighted it.
All
Hold on,
right.
let me show it real quick. There it is, right
Okay.
there. And
Elizabeth's got all the good questions.
I didn't think we had covered this. So, do I keep
Okay.
paying until I die, or does it stop at some point?
Yeah, I brought it
And
up.
so, did I answer it? I don't remember
Well,
answering it.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Um, the moral of the story is, in most cases, you're buying a life insurance policy that technically does not end till you're 120. Now, depending on your health and a lot of different other circumstances, it may look different for you, but in most cases, it's age 120. So if you live to that age 120, the life insurance company just pays out the death benefit in a check or whatever the case may be. Most of us, majority, all of us, won't be living till age 120, but that's kind of how it works. But to your point around, do I just keep paying until I die? You have an option. And I think I kind of phrase it this way. You have the option to continue contributing, but because of all the leverage built inside this policy, you can kind of either stair step down what it is you're contributing or stop altogether. And the assumption when you start taking income from the policy, the assumption is you're no longer contributing to the policy at all. But it's kind of in the intro. My argument is if you've got a vehicle that all it does is print money for you, would you ever turn that vehicle off? Regardless of how much you have to put in it, if I put in $1 and it's going to make me $20, would I ever stop putting that dollar in? Now, you have the option to stop putting it in if you want. But my argument is, why would you ever stop? Why wouldn't you use $1 from the 20 that you're receiving and use that to continue feeding the machine? Because what happens if the machine never stops? If the machine never stops, it continues to generate income, more and more income. So even that $50,000 that we were referencing, that's maybe what it's spitting out this year. But next year, if you continue contributing, it may be 58,000. Year after that, it might be 65. So it continues to grow, continues to build, which means that's more income for you. So why would you ever turn it off? And I don't think I answered that question.
Okay, well, I know I for sure put it up.
I believe you.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what triggered me to talk about the pure compounder and reverse velocity banking was just the concept of let that machine start building another machine. And so it's not a question of when do I have to stop feeding this machine? It's how many machines can we start growing and what's the goal, right? What's the overall goal? Sometimes though, what we choose as our goals, where we're aiming for is based off of what we think is possible, right? We're not going to live on the moon if we don't think that living on the moon is possible. So therefore, it impacts how big our vision can be and what we're planning for. If we say, well, I just want to make sure I have enough in retirement, one, we don't even know what that number is. To be honest, none of us know what that figure will be. But the other part is, what do you think that figure would be? Like, we don't know, but what do you think that number would be? And then what do you have in place today that is going to yield those results? For most people, that they cannot answer that. For most people, that's the response, right? Because it feels like YOLO. Well, why would I put my money and stick it in this machine that I can't access traditional retirement plans? Because I need to make the most out of today. Like what none of us are promised tomorrow. So why would I do that? But the truth is, if you could go back 10 years or 20 years from today, and you could have started a machine like this, and you could have $100,000 in tax-free income today. Let's just say this existed 10 or 20 years ago, and you could have $100K in tax-free income starting today. How would that change things for you? Let's say let's say you didn't quit your job. Let's say you didn't shut down your business. Let's say you still wanted to work, but you got to do it because you wanted to, not because you had to. Because you had $100,000 extra income that's tax-free.
Right.
We have those solutions today, and so we should take advantage of them. And then what we're going to do is on the next stream, we're going to talk about how to leverage, how we can look at leverage a little bit differently so that we can not be talking about this and that, or this or that, but this and that. We say it all the time. There are many ways to 10. The goal is that we get everybody to 10, right? At least to 10. That's not to say to stop somebody from dreaming about hitting 15 or 20 or 30 or whatever that is. The goal is that we need to make 10 the minimum. So there are many ways to get there, and whatever your opportunities are and the variables inside of your equation, inside of your life, you'll be educated to make confident and educated decisions along the way to be able to reach that goal. That's the point. Okay. Yes, Zakia, we did run that video. She's like, I needed to double check my checkbox. She's got us covered. Okay, so on that note, if you didn't come from a wealthy family,
You can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
so stay tuned,
Stay protected.
stay focused.
Stay connected.
I'm Angelique,
And I'm Donnell.
and our goal is to help you.
Get self-directed.
And to do that, we have a ton of free resources, and we're adding more all the time. Our family, our community is getting bigger and stronger. So join us on Facebook. Come back here on Wednesday. We're here Sundays and Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and all the standard times in between. And we will see you back here next time. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and tell a friend to tell a friend. We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you get self-directed.
Self-directed.